What would you do if a stranger offered to pay you to murder someone? You'd say not interested, but Nashville bass player Bart Pike went an entirely different route. A gutsy move, codename The Session. Bart Pike is an authentic Nashville professional musician. He's good, he makes a living, but it hasn't been easy.
I'm not trying to brag, but I've played with a lot of people. And luckily I'm blessed, and I still do, and do session work. And I'm able to keep the lights on.
Keeping the lights on has led him into the dimly lit honky-tonks of the South.
You never know where God's going to use you somewhere, even if it's in a smoke-filled bar.
But it wasn't God who wanted to use Bart Pike at Scott's City Limits in Edmonton, Kentucky. It was bar owner Scott Gentry. The bar owner, singer, and mountain of a man hired Bart to put together a band. When Pike showed up, he was greeted with an insult.
He said, oh, I forgot I hired a 3/4 midget, because I'm 5'4". And I said, well, how would you like to get your whipped by a 3/4 midget?
The pluck of the 5'4" bass player impressed Gentry, who pulled Pike aside.
He said, you seem like the kind of guy that could do something sideways. I said, yeah. I'm just playing along with him because I'm not that guy. And basically, long story short, he said, I need somebody dead by Wednesday.
In this moment, Bart Pike made a decision that would have huge consequences. He said yes, not because he was going to kill someone, but because he figured if he said no, Gentry would find someone else to do the killing. The hit was against a man named Mike Darnell, who was scheduled to testify against Gentry in an upcoming drug and gun trial.
I felt an obligation to not let this go down.
Bart Pike contacted the police, who set up what they call a control call.
I was a hitman, yeah. My little 5'4" butt was a hitman.
He's laughing now, but he was terrified making that phone call. Listen.
Lord, please help me do the right thing here. You're positive you want to do this, and this session, you want, okay. And my producer, he really wants the $5,000 all for him. So I need something for me.
Well, we'll figure something out.
Man, are you doing okay? I'm worried about you.
Ain't one thing to cure my problems.
All right, well, I'm going to help you with that. This is going to be a good record, okay?
A couple follow-up calls, and then the meeting was set up at the Kmart parking lot in Glasgow, Kentucky, with Bart and an undercover officer posing as the hitmen.
There was one word that if we said it, they had a sniper set up that would shoot Kevin.
It was right here in the old Kmart parking lot where Kevin Scott Gentry finally crossed the line and committed the crime of solicitation for murder. He gave the undercover officer $2,500 and said, before you kill Mike Darnell, you tell him it was me.
He gave the instructions on what he wanted done, which was despicable. He had the devil in him.
Kentucky State Police arrested Gentry minutes later.
So you don't want to talk?
I don't know. Why would I want to talk? My attorney's always told me not to say nothing.
But he had already said too much. Scott Gentry pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for solicitation to commit murder. His big country music bar burned to the ground. His whole life now just like his club. Ashes and ruin. All because he made a short joke to the wrong bass player. Looking back, Bart Pike does think it was God using him at Scott City Limits that night to help save a man's life. I'm Dennis Ferrier, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station. You can tell it was bad by the way things still look. You know it was awful because 18 people died here. You can try to describe it. Reporters have tumbled out words. But the truth is, when you are here, you get quiet. This is the Echo Valley subdivision in Cookeville. This is the first cul-de-sac in the neighborhood. If it looks like the homes were vacuumed into the air, that's pretty much what happened. Craig Ragsdale and his family gathered in a closet. He and his wife Bethany tried to surround their 4 children.
As soon as she grabbed my arm, it picked up that far side of the house first and pulled me and my daughter up into the air. I couldn't tell you how high I went. Couldn't tell you how far or how long it lasted. It felt like an eternity. So I thought that I was dead that night. I thought that was it.
I remember opening my eyes and seeing my husband, his profile, and he had Nora, our daughter, in his arm. And, you know, he was yelling for me. And I'm like, it's okay, I'm right here. He came and got me, and as soon as he said, are you and the boys okay? And I said, yeah, we're fine. He said, God has big plans for us.
Craig Ragsdale is a Cookeville policeman, but that night he was just a dad, a husband, a neighbor. And what he relied on was not his training, it was what he believed, down to the marrow of his bones. He heard his neighbor crying for help with a badly wounded child.
I said out loud, I need to find shoes. And I looked down and I found both of my work boots, my left and right boot, sitting right next to each other on the ground.
Craig Ragsdale found his neighbors, the Sells. Their son Gavin was critically injured, but the ambulance couldn't get near the cul-de-sac.
And I remember sitting there and thinking, if he doesn't go, he may pass away, just because of the injuries that I saw.
This was a dangerous, dangerous run to the ambulance. Remember, firemen's carry Craig Ragsdale, pitch black, a minefield of down power lines. He had to zigzag across the street a couple times, all the way down to that white sign, a half-mile run, the Dipsy Doodle. That's where the ambulance was.
The next day I couldn't come out here and find two pairs of shoes, the left and the right, that matched. You know, like, you know that God had his hand on that, because how would that have happened?
Craig Ragsdale filled those boots that night, and it filled him when his wife encouraged him.
At one point I looked at her and said, are you okay? And she said, I know you have to. So it was big for me to have that support, because she knows that that's what needed to be done. And she knew that I was gonna, she knew I'd be back.
Little Nora had a broken leg, Carter had a concussion, but Bethany Ragsdale was no longer afraid.
We just lost everything. We almost died, but none of the negative even mattered, because it was just like this renewing of life and security that I've never felt before.
11-year-old Gavin survived. That desperate, perilous run did it. You might think there's nothing left of Echo Valley. You would be wrong. Every single person who lived here still lives. And then there's the faith, as powerful as any tornado. In Cookeville, I'm Dennis Ferrier, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station. Jeanette Lloyd is a brave school teacher who survived not just one horrible night, but a year and a half of hell.
Yes, time is very, very important, right?
Jeanette Lloyd teaches the nursing class at Fayette Ware High School in Somerville.
What are you going to do next?
Today she is showing the kids how to perform CPR. You never know, right? 1 minute everything is fine, the next minute you're fighting for life.
Okay, and then you're going to put the pads on quickly, right?
Miss Lloyd is very qualified on that subject. She wishes she wasn't. After a church couples night dinner with her estranged husband, Devin Knight, the two went back to Jeanette's house to talk about the future. Could they save the marriage? It would turn out to be the night that ended almost everything.
He told me that I owed him sex. And I said, no, I am not doing this with you being the way you are. And he forced himself on me.
After the assault, Jeanette tried to leave. That's when Knight threw her into a recliner and pinned her.
I was screaming and hollering, please, you're hurting me. You're hurting me. And while I was laying there, I looked up at him, and it was like he didn't even have a soul. There was nothing in his eyes, and I got a little scared at that point. And then out from behind his back, he pulled out a knife.
Lloyd was stabbed in the face. He then tried to strangle her multiple times. When that didn't work, he went back to the knife and tried to stab her in the heart.
And every time he lifted his hand up in the air and lunged toward my chest, I took a deep breath, because I knew that was my last breath. I knew that was my last breath.
The knife kept hitting bone. Finally, he started searching the home for Lloyd's gun. That's when she staggered outside and neighbors called 911. Knight was arrested and charged with domestic assault. Bond was just $50,000. He paid the $5,000 and walked out of jail.
That's when the nightmare began. Because I'm thinking, this guy's going to come find me and finish me off. They let him out. They let him out.
When the grand jury heard the details, the charges changed. Attempted first-degree murder, aggravated assault by strangulation, and kidnapping. Surely this would change the bond. Even pictures of Knight snorting white powder right before the attack didn't matter. Judge J. Weber McCraw refused to increase the bond. Knight would remain a free man right up to trial while his victim discovered she was the one in prison.
I no longer could have any contact with my family. I couldn't spend holidays with them. I couldn't go to the grocery store. I couldn't go to Walmart. I had to look over my shoulder everywhere that I went.
Low bond and lots of delays, continuances, changes in court date. Lloyd remained in hiding for 18 months. How could the state of Tennessee allow a victim to go through this? Verna Wyatt of Tennessee Voices for Victims.
Well, I think when there's a domestic violence case where somebody has absolutely been injured and that person is set out on bond, there has to be a shorter time of getting that case disposed of because the victim's life is in jeopardy.
But that didn't happen for Jeanette Lloyd. She says her trial was rescheduled 9 times. Throw in that low bail, and you know why she felt she would never be safe. 18 months later, 18 long months later, Devin Knight was found guilty of all charges.
I didn't get the chance to walk away.
Jeanette Lloyd faced him one more time, now afraid the judge would be lenient.
On the attempted first-degree murder,
finally,
22 years at 85%.
22 years in prison for Devin Knight. Finally, freedom for Jeanette Lloyd.
Is there a way to stop this kind of thing from happening to another woman? Can the system be fixed on serious domestic violence assaults? Shorter trials, higher bonds, we are working on those issues. I'm Dennis Ferrier, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.